Hi everyone, House in Chinese with Labake here once again. Today we are doing the last part of past question 1, which is the writing part, and my favorite. This is definitely my favorite. I love stories, so I love the writing part in all of my HSK past questions. So yeah, let's get straight right into it. So there are 3 parts in the shoes here: the writing part, the parts where you have to rearrange the sentences, and the parts where you have to make up stories, one by using the words provided and the other by using a picture provided. So let's start with the first one, of course. So for this part, you know what helps a lot? Exposure helps. Actually, with everything you do in Chinese or any other thing, actually, exposure helps. The more you listen, the more you read, the more you have this language sense. Yugan, we call it yugan. Yugan. So yuyenda ganjue. Yugan, don't mind my writing. So the more you have this language sense, right? So once you have this language sense, you easily, without even looking at what's the verb, what's the noun, you kind of easily place things together. Okay, this is how it would sound right. This is how it would sound right. Like you'll be able to put that together. But here, I usually do that most of the time and not focus on the grammar. But for the purpose of this video, I would also talk a little bit about the grammar too. So for the first one, we have the example. 发表这篇论文什么时候是的? We know that in Chinese, usually the time or the subject comes first. It's usually the time or the subject. For example, 明天我要去中国 or 我明天要去中国. So with that, we know that we can either have 什么时候 as the first word or 这篇论文 as the first word. So either of them can be the first word, right? So if we can say 什么时候发表这篇论文, but we still have 2 other words. So that means it does not work. From this 是 and the that we can see, you know, there is 是什么什么的 sentence structure in Chinese. So I think this sentence is that structure. So for that structure, the 这篇论文 has to come first. And we know 发表 to publish, it's a verb. So we say 这篇论文是什么时候发表的? Because for this 是什么什么的 structure, the 是 would come after the subject. It is trying to emphasize something. That thing that is between the 是 and the的is what we are trying to emphasize. And in this case, 什么时候发表 is what they are trying to emphasize. So that's the grammatical explanation for this example. So let's go to the first question. Now for the first question, we have 结果将在公布月底录取. So if you understand these words, 结果将在, 结果 is the result, 将在 will, 公布 means to publish, to announce, 月底 month end, 录取 admission. So when we say admission and results, we already know it is okay. Admission results, these 2 has to be together. This and this has to be together. So it is 录取结果. We cannot say 结果将在录取. No, 录取结果, because this 结果 is talking about the admission. So it is the admission results. Okay, it is the admission results. I'm trying to clear my screen. Come on. So it is the admission results we are talking about.公布 to publish, right? And the time 月底. So we can say 录取结果将在 will is saying after will, even in English, we would usually say the time. So after 将在, we're supposed to have the 时间. So we know 录取 is the first, 结果将在 is the second. Then we know because after 在 we have to have the time, and the only time between these 2 is the 月底. So we know it is 录取结果将在月底. What would happen? 月底 do what? What would they do in 月底? 公布. So we know it is 录取结果将在月底公布. So that is the answer for number 1, right? So to go over it again, look at words that connect. The first thing I do is you look at words that connect. What is modifying what? Right? So 录取结果 here is modifying the 录取. So you have to put 录取 before 结果. Then after 在, we know time comes next, right? Time. And the only time we have here is 月底, month end. So what would happen at the end of the month? It is 公布, publish. Okay? So what we have is 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's move to number 92. For number 92, what we have is 他自信承认自己缺乏. So here we don't have time. Right? We don't have time. What we have is 他, which is most probably our subject and the first word, right? So 他 is our first word. The first word we have here. 他自信承认自己缺乏. Let's look at the meaning of those words. 自信 is confidence. 承认自己 means admit oneself. 缺乏 means lack. Oh, so this person is trying to admit he lacks confidence. Okay, so we can say 他承认自己什么？承认自己什么？ because here 他 after 他 we should have, we are looking for the verb in this subject, in this 4 options we have. So 承认 is the verb. So 承认自己什么？缺乏 this is also a verb actually. 承认自己 well, we cannot say 他缺乏承认自己 that does not make sense, which is also why we need to know the meaning of the words in these things. So it is 他承认自己缺乏. So 缺乏 is the 3rd word. 自信 is the 4th word. So it is he admitted he lacks confidence. He admitted he lacks confidence. So 他承认自己缺乏自信. That is simple. Moving forward. Number 93. 参加其他优惠打折商品活动不在. So 参加其他优惠 means to be involved in other discounts. 打折商品 that's the already discounted products. Okay. 活动 the activity, the event. 不在 means not again, right? Not again. So what is the verb? What is the noun in all of these things? We have the 打折商品 and the 活动. But what makes more sense to be the first word here is 打折商品. So I think 打折商品 is the first word. 打折商品 what exactly is happening to 打折商品? We cannot say 打折商品参加其他优惠活动不在. No, that does not make sense. It is 打折商品不在. 不在 do what? 参加其他优惠 what? 活动. At the beginning, I already know that 优惠活动 is coming together. So that means wherever this 参加其他优惠活动 must come after. Okay, so they have to be together. And I know that it cannot be 打折商品参加其他优惠活动 because we still have this 不在 here. It has to be used. Okay, so I knew that 打折商品 after 打折商品 we have 不在. 不在 do what? 参加其他优惠活动. That means the already discounted products cannot be involved or cannot participate in other discounted activities. So for example, when you enter the supermarket, there are some products that originally they were sold for 10,000 USD. Now they are sold for 1,000 USD. And maybe they tell you that at the end of the day, if you buy up to 30,000, you get some sort of discount again. So they are now telling you that because this product is already discounted from the original price, you cannot use it to participate in any other, maybe buy 10 gets 2 discounts again. That is what this means. Then number 94. 汽油的上涨价格有了. So obviously the first thing I would know is 汽油的价格, petrol's price or fuel's price. That's the first thing I know, that definitely, because after the, what comes after the is usually a noun, right? This the is a noun. 汽油的什么？白色的苹果，红色的苹果. So 汽油的价格. I already know these two, they are together. Now let's figure out where the other things are. Now 上涨 is to increase, to surge. Something is going up. And we have 有了. Okay, we have 有了. This usually annoying words that we always find it difficult to fix. Now we know 汽油的, we know from the understanding of this word, of these different words put together, I think what they are trying to express is that the price of fuel, the price of oil is now increasing again, or it has increased again. So it is 汽油的价格又上涨了. 汽油的价格又上涨了 because the 又什么什么了 is trying to say that something happened again. So between 又 and 了 there has to be a verb. Between 又 and 了 there has to be a verb, and we already know that the only verb we have here is 上涨. So it is 又上涨了 then 汽油的价格又上涨了. Okay, let's continue. 95. 这两家差别公司的待遇很大. Okay, the first thing that comes to my mind is we know that words, nouns in Chinese has measure words, and we know that this jia is a measure word in this context. It's talking about 2 companies. So I already know automatically that 这两家 what comes after 这两家 is 公司的待遇. Even not bothering about the 待遇, it is 这两家公司. But because they are together, so obviously I know it is 这两家公司的待遇, they are together. And because those are the 2 verbs, the 2 nouns we have, so it is 这两家公司的待遇. What happened to them? 差别, the difference, 很大. And definitely this cannot be, in this context, it is not 很大差别, it is 差别 before 很大. That makes more sense. It sounds more natural. So it comes to me that 这两家公司的待遇差别很大. Okay, so it is 这两家公司的待遇差别很大。Then moving forward, 小姑娘非常那个孝顺。Okay, so this is 小姑娘 that young lady 非常 very 那个 that 孝顺 respectful and what's that word? 孝顺 is when you are good to your parents, right? When you are obedient, submissive, kind to your parents. That's what 孝顺 is. Okay, so the first thing that comes to my mind is this 那个 should definitely be with that 小姑娘 because they are trying to point to us which 小姑娘. So it is 那个小姑娘。怎么啦? This one is very simple. 非常 because we know that the adverb would come before what? The adjective. 非常孝顺。那个小姑娘非常孝顺。Okay, are we together? Let's continue. 请在办理入住手续前台。请在 now this is like a suggestion or a what do we call it again? Like an instruction, right? An instruction. And usually for instructions, 请 is usually the first thing we say in Chinese, right? 请. So now when they are saying 请在, this is like please at a particular place, 办理入住 to check in, 手续. 手续 is the process, the procedure, 前台 reception. So the first thing that comes to my mind is after this 在, it has to be a place, right? Or time, and we don't have time here, so it is place. So it will be 请在前台. 请在前台 do what? What are we doing in 前台? 办理 this 入住手续 usually when you speak to receptionists at an hotel, they would usually tell you, oh, 到酒店之后办理入住手续. Or when you go to the airport, they will tell you 办理登机手续. 办理 something 的手续. So it is 请在前台办理入住手续. Okay? Then the last one, before we move to the next part, 风俗习惯保留着一些古老这里还的风俗习惯 are traditional customs, okay? 保留着一些古老 preserve some ancient 这里还 this place still 的 okay? So the is supposed to connect two noun phrases or two nouns, right? And we fortunately have two noun phrases in this sentence. We have 风俗习惯保留着一些古老. So what's from our understanding of these expressions, we know that 古老 is definitely modifying 风俗习惯 and not the other way around. So that means this would come. That means this 保留着一些古老 would definitely come before 风俗习惯. But those are not the first things. Those are not the first expressions in our sentence. So what is the first thing? So it should be the 这里还 because it's talking about a particular place, right? We have to point out the place. The noun, remember, we have to point out the place before pointing out what they've done. So it is 这里还干嘛？保留着一些古老的风俗习惯。Okay? 这里还 this place still 保留着一些古老的风俗习惯。And that's it. So a lot of people that say this part is difficult, I think the issue is usually maybe because we don't understand the words, we've not gotten enough exposure to sentences, or we think too much about what's the verb, what's the noun phrase. Sometimes I think you should just naturally let your language sense do the job for you, because usually that is what I do. And some people might think, oh, it's because your Chinese level is already very high. Even when I did the exam in 2016, was it 2016? I did HSK 5 in 2016. I use the same formula. I don't look at the noun, the verbs. I watch a lot of Chinese movies. I listen to podcasts. And I just let my Yugan do the job. Okay? It's easier for me, I think. Because I don't like the rules. Now, let's go to the part that I love most. Absolutely love most. So for this part, what I'll be doing is I won't be writing out a full-blown article. I'll just be saying it with my mouth. Then I'll be writing down pointers. Now, for this part, what I tell people is don't think too much about it. A lot of people, the first thing they think about is how I would use all of these words and stuff. For me, yes, the first step I would advise you do is understand these words. Understand these words and think of stories. So understand the words that are listed, all of those words that are listed, and think of a story. Be creative. Be creative and think of a story. So, for example, what we have here, 博物馆, a museum, 保存, to keep, right? 讲解员, someone who, what do we call them? People who talk. I mean, this guides that explains things we see inside the 博物馆, obviously. 丰富, rich. Maybe you're talking about the person's knowledge is 丰富. It could be anything, or maybe even what is about. So in the 博物馆 is 丰富. 值得. So now, obviously, this can turn into two different stories, right? Now, for me, if I'm going to write this into, and what you should know is that 80 characters, really, it's not a lot. It's not a lot. The only issue that a lot of people would have is maybe writing of characters. Okay, it might be writing of characters, and that is why I personally love CBT. But if you don't have opportunity to do CBT, just practice as many times as possible, and you will still be able to do well in the exam. Because when I did my HSK 5, and in fact the first HSK 6 I did in 2019, it was also handwritten. It was not CBT. It was the second and third I did during my first masters that I was opportune to do CBT. Okay, so it is still possible to pass in flying colors even if you do handwritten paper-based text. Okay, so for this one now, two stories comes to my head. So why I said be creative is because if you try to just stick to using those 5 words to write 80 characters short essay, you get frustrated and tired. Why not make it creative, make it fun? When the examiner is even marking, they get excited. So let's go straight into it. So what comes to my head now is let me think. Okay, 有一天我跟妈妈说我同学去博物馆参观了，我也想跟爸爸妈妈去博物馆参观。That is me creating some sort of foundation for my story. We just what I've said now about 10 characters gone already. Simple characters. 妈妈说好的，那我们周末去博物馆参观吧。我很开心。周末到了，我们非常早的时候就出发去博物馆了。到博物馆之后，我们看到了一位非常美丽的讲解员。讲解员 ，remember 讲解员。Now I've used 博物馆 ，now I've used 讲解员，非常美丽的讲解员。看到他讲的时候，觉得他的知识好丰富啊。看他讲的时候，觉得他的知识好丰富啊，让我立马有一种这个博物馆很值得参观的样子，让我感觉这个博物馆很值得参观的样子。I've used for。后来妈妈说，我们自己也要不要找一个讲解员？我说要，我就要那位漂亮的姐姐。那我们就等了一会儿，等她结束之后，我们就去找她，也想让她给我们讲解一下博物馆里面保存的很多东西。她讲着讲着，她越讲我就越开心。我觉得我们来迟了，结束。Actually, what I've just said now is at almost 150 characters already. You don't have to go that far. The point I'm just trying to paint, what I'm just trying to say is, you can think of so many things. Or you can even say, another story that comes to mind. 昨天我在上课的时候，我最好的朋友明明跟我说，他上周末跟他父母去参观博物馆了。他们到博物馆之后，本来是想找一个知识很丰富的讲解员，但是他们说所有的讲解员都请假了，那只能自己去看博物馆里面保存的东西。我越看越觉得，这个博物馆还是非常值得参观的，只是说如果有讲解员就会体验会更好一些。This is a different story entirely. I still use these 5 words. Do you understand? So like you just have to be creative and everything will be fine, honestly. Be creative, everything will be fine. You can think of a story that is simple to write. You can think of a story, anything that fits your ability, right? If you are typing, nothing stops you. You just keep typing and you are good. And if you are writing, you can think of simple words to even replace characters in your mind that would still express the same thing. Okay, so that is for 99. Now we move to 100. Now this part is the one I love the most because it is just a picture, and pictures can be interpreted in different ways. Now some people would say that you can do 我在这张照片上看到一对男女的手，那个男的用手就是他拿着女的的手，然后女的的手上有一钻那个一枚钻戒一枚钻戒 that's 钻戒 is diamond ring 一枚钻戒 if you don't know how to write 钻戒 you can say 戒指 okay anything you decide to use but for me who likes stories that is boring. You can do that if that is what you like to do, honestly, just describing. So the first method is to describe what is on the picture. Describe the picture. Okay, describe the picture, which is definitely okay. If you like to do that, that's fine with me. So far you are still on the right path. But for me, I love stories. Like I said, I like to think of stories. I like to write stories. I like to watch and listen to stories and read stories. So because of that, that is too boring for me. I want something creative. I want what the examiner would look at and smile. Okay, so for me, I could just think of because I have enough time, honestly, so I could just randomly think of 我前几天是我爸爸妈妈的结婚纪念日，那天我看到了爸爸跟妈妈求婚的照片那张照片上就是爸爸握着妈妈的手，然后妈妈手上有一个非常大的一颗钻戒，我就是拿这张照片去找妈妈，问她妈妈那天爸爸跟你求婚是一个什么样的感觉？妈妈就跟我讲了一个非常非常长的故事，说刚开始呢，他对爸爸没有感觉，但是看到爸爸的努力之后，他就觉得这是我要嫁一辈子并且要一起生活的男人，所以他跟我求婚的那一天，我就非常非常的高兴。我高兴的原因是因为我终于有机会跟这个男人在一起，还有一个原因是因为他买的那颗钻戒真的很大，值很多很多的钱，我非常喜欢钱，你知道的，所以我很开心。妈妈讲完故事之后，我也就开始期待，开始想到底什么时候会有我自己的白马王子来跟我结婚。Look at that. Imagine you are the examiner and you read these two different kind of stories. How would you feel? Just think about it. How would you feel? So for me, really, it's more about being creative. That's how I deal with this part of the question. I love to be creative. I make, I play around with words. I play around with my understanding of words. And honestly, you would be surprised how simple those words you really need are and how well you can actually write them. So this is your tip to read more, to get more exposure. And once you get more exposure, in fact, the funny thing is that those things we read in our reading part, when we look at the reading part from question 46 to 90, some of them are stories you can retell in this part of the question. It might not be exactly the same thing, but you can still be able to connect one thing or the other. Okay, and of course I understand not everyone likes stories, but we are all creative, so we can all make do. If you also like to describe what is on the picture, fine, you can go ahead and do that. If you like to be creative, you can go ahead and do that. What matters is you enjoy this process, and at the end of the day you pass your exam. So we've come to the end of the first past question, and I would really love to hear back from you in the comment section. If you have anything to give, if you have anything to share, please do that in the comment section. And I look forward to seeing you in past question 2 in our next video, where we would go back to doing listening again of our past question 2. And just as we've done this listening, reading and writing, for the rest of the past questions we are able to lay our hands on for as long as we are doing this for. Of course, I look forward to seeing you in the next video, where we begin to treat past question 2. Thank you everyone for staying tuned. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share with people that would find this useful. Bye everyone.